Well, we are now in our third year of the Plant Phenome Journal webinar series. This webinar is going to be presented by Dr. Yumou Q. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Statistics at Iowa State. He's going to be talking on simple plant image segmentation by neural network. However, the name of the article that's now on the first look on the Plant Phenome Journal, which is how we were aware of his work, is now up online. So you can read a little bit more about his research on his personal website. He also highlighted that James Schnable played an important role in this, and James has presented a very popular webinar on the Plant Phenome Journal in the past. And then my intention will be, this will be recorded and then we'll put it up on YouTube so that anybody who can't make it can watch there. If you do have any questions, feel free to chat in the comment box. I'll try and keep an eye on that. And at the end, we'll take questions through the comment box or online. So without further ado, Dr. Q.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to appreciate the Plant Phenome Journal to organize this webinar. It's a very good chance for us to talk about our research program. And I think it can be very useful in plant science, especially in those high throughput phenotyping data analysis. Okay, so my name is Yumou. I'm from statistics department at Iowa State. So I would like to talk about image segmentation using a neural network. So the title of the talk is called Simple Plant Image Segmentation. So I highlight simple because this method is very easy to implement. And it gives a robust and accurate result for image segmentation. Okay, so in plant science, our goal, I think one of the main goals is to understand this equation about the phenotype and the genotype and environment, their interaction. So nowadays we have a well-established platform to measure genetic data. And the price becomes cheaper and cheaper for genetic information. And we can also measure environmental data. But the challenge here is how we measure the phenotype data. So for the classical ways that we have students or we have people go into the fields and measure manually. So this is very time-consuming and labor-intensive. So therefore, in recent years, high-throughput phenotyping become a very hot topic. So a lot of universities, especially in Midwest part, invest a lot of money to build those systems. So idea of the system is to take image of the plant and to extract phenotype from the images. So I will give you an example in the next slide, for the Nebraska-Lincoln University of Nebraska-Lincoln facility. Okay, so now we have those systems, but a current bottleneck is how to accurately extract these plant traits from images. Okay, so what we will talk about is kind of the first step for feature extraction. So we will talk about plant segmentation. So plant segmentation will generate a binary image. So I will show you in a minute. So this is the facility at UNL. So it's called Greenhouse Innovation Center. It's a very fancy greenhouse. So the plants are grown on the belt, and the belt are automatic, send the plants into those image chamber on the right side of the image. And in those image chambers, the plants are imaged. So there are different type of images in the chamber. So you can see there are several doors corresponding different image chamber. So today we will talk about RGB image. So it's the usual, the normal, the most common type of image. But there indeed are more, maybe more fancy images there, so including hyperspectral images. We're also working on hyperspectral images to extract more detailed plant organs. Okay, so the image segmentation, the idea is to separate the image from the background. So this is the first step, because that if we want to extract, for example, the plant size, that we need to know what part is the plant, what part is the background in this image. So these are two example images taken from the UNL greenhouse. So one is for plant is small and one is for plants relatively larger. So as we say that when plant is small, the background is it's more homogeneous. But when plant goes bigger, that we rule out the camera, it's more background will involved. Okay, so for feature extraction, that what we do is after we get this binary image, so on the right side, so the plant part will be regarded as 1 and the background part will be regarded as 0. So in the end, we will have a 0-1 binary image. So once we have this binary image, it's easy for us to calculate the plant height, plant width. For the plant height, basically is the top row with the white pixel minus the bottom row with the white pixel. So that gives us how many rows, okay, from the top to the bottom of the plant, and then we multiply a constant of from this camera to translate this number of rows into the actual height of the plant. And we do the same for the size of plant. We can just add like a number of pixels of the plant, treat it as the size of plant. So we can also get the architecture of the plant by consider convex hull or skeleton of this binary image. So we can actually do a lot of things once we have a very nice segmentation. Okay, so the most common method used for segmentation is using thresholding. So this is a very simple method. The idea is the plant is different from the background. So if we look at the green channel, or if we look at the green contrast, the green and the blue and the red contrast, so we can put a threshold there. So then the plant can be distinguished from the background. Okay, so the procedure usually involves define a region of interest and to use a universal threshold within this region. Okay, the universal threshold means that we apply the same threshold for each pixel. So this is the same criteria we applied on each pixel of this part of the image. So then the plant can be segmented out. So there are some challenges of this approach. So first of all, so when the background gets more noisy, or when the plant goes bigger, that we have to involve the more background. So then using a universal threshold may not work very well. So as you can see that even for this simple case that we have a strip of 9 on the left side from the thresholding. So what people usually do is use some morphological operation applied on the thresholded result to get rid of the noise, okay? But that may not always give you a very clean background. Okay, so we will mention later that a very clean background actually sometimes is quite important, especially if you want to construct the convex hull of a plant. Okay, so as the plant goes larger, so as we can see that there are more noise on the background, and also this threshold method heavily depends on the choice of the threshold level. Okay, if the threshold level is loose, that we may include many backgrounds, so which is showing on the left side. And if our criteria is very strict, if we are very conservative about the plants, so we may lose a lot of the parts of the plant as showing on the right side. So in the middle, it's kind of a balance, but there are still some noise on the background, and we also miss some parts of the plant. So another issue when we are applying this method is how to manually choose this threshold. So usually, what we do is we just choose one threshold for for several pictures, and then we just apply this threshold on all the following images. Okay, but that may not always be a very good solution because the condition of the image chamber may change over time. So you need to manually check over time to time to say whether you have a reasonable result. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to propose a more robust method, which can give us more accurate result. So robust means we do not need to change any tuning parameter for this method. Okay, and accurate means that we can get a better results than thresholding method, which is the most commonly used method. So we do this by the idea of supervised learning. So what does supervised learning mean? Supervised learning usually has 3 steps. So first, we need to obtain a set of data with correct labels. Okay, so this is what we call the training data. Then we build our model on the training data. And we predict the class of new data based on this model. So there are 3 steps. Okay, there are 3 steps. So let me illustrate the idea by using this figure. This figure, so because several years ago that there is a competition about use machine to classify a dog and a cat based on their images. So what we do is we have thousands or 10,000s of images with the correct label. So we know which one has dog, which one has cat, okay? And we put those labeled image into a machine and let the machine learn or algorithm to automatically classify cat and dog, okay? And then once we have a new image, so suppose we do not know the label, and we put into the machine, and the machine can give us a prediction. So that is supervised learning, okay? So in those 3 steps of supervised learning, okay, so the most time-consuming and label-consuming part is actually the first one, how to obtain a set of data with correct labels, is how to obtain a good training data, okay, a good training set. Okay, build the model, and prediction is actually not that time consuming. Okay, so this is also the reason that many companies and many researchers put a lot of resources to get a better set of training data. Okay, so before I introduce our method, I also want to mention another recently proposed very powerful method for image segmentation. So this is called UNet, or another name is called the fully connected convolutional neural network. Okay, so this method involving 2 parts, auto-encoding and auto-decoding. So auto-encoding is the left part, okay? So with this blue and red layers. So what it do is it will encode the original image into a non-vector, and then reconstruct the original image based on this vector, okay? So that is the deconvolution part. So the output from the deconvolution is a segmented image, okay? So in this case, this is the satellite data, and we want to classify the planes there on the, okay, on the airport. Okay, so this is the UNet. Okay, so advantages of the UNet is it's successful. It's have many successful applications, especially in medical image segmentation, that people use this method to automatically segment the tumor from in the medical image. Okay, and another advantage is output from the auto-encoding can be viewed as the latent feature for the original image. Okay, so we can actually, so think of this latent, so this vector of from this auto-encoding as a transformation of the original image. So we can actually analyze those latent features to study to study the original image. Okay, but there is a shortcoming which is related to what we just talked about. So this method requires many segmented image as training, okay? Which means we need to have a training data, so which is the pictures, but those pictures need to have a correct labeling for each of the pixel, okay? For each of the pixel. So we need to have a large set of well-segmented images to apply this method, okay? So think of our plant segmentation. So we need to have many images with a segmented plant. So we know where's the plant, where's the background. So we may need thousands of such images, and then we apply this unit. Okay, so this could be challenging in many applications. Okay, so what our solution? So our solution is actually quite simple. Okay, so we consider classification on pixel level. So we want to classify each pixel. So there are only two classes for each pixel. So one class is a background, another class is a plant. Okay. So these are the training data. Okay. We want to prepare training data as this. Okay. And then we can build classification model, okay, on the training data. Okay. And this classification is on each pixel level. Okay, so the key question here is how to build our training data. Okay, so before we talk about how we prepare the training data, let me briefly talk about the idea of k-mean clustering. Okay, so the k-mean clustering, so this is a demonstration of the k-mean algorithm. So we have original data. Okay, so it's a combination of those blue, red, and yellow points. So this is our original data. We don't know their labels. Okay, so in other words, this is also called unsupervised learning. Okay, because we do not know their labels. Okay, so what it do? It iterated choose the center. Okay, and classify each point to the nearest center. Okay, so as you can see in this demonstration, the center, so the center of these three classes actually begin from the right part. Okay, if you look at iteration equal to 0, it begins from the right part, and then it gradually move. So the red center and the yellow center are gradually moved. Okay, so this is a iteration of finding the center of each group and then the group label. Okay, so this is the idea of k-mean clustering. So what if we apply this k-mean clustering on our images? Okay, so remember that we talk about our image have just two classes which we are interested, the plant and the background. Okay, but instead of using k equal to 2, so here I just try k larger than 2. So the underlying cluster, I set it equal to 4. Okay, so one of the class coming out, okay, as you can see it from the left side of the picture, so it actually gives us a very clear shape of the plant. However, it involves a lot of background noise. Okay, so of course we cannot use this as our segmentation result, but at least that we know that the k-mean clustering can give us almost a very good reconstruction of the plant. Okay, so there is another interesting class from this k-mean clustering. This is also the reason that we choose underlying classes larger than 2. Okay, so this interesting class actually gives us the edge of the plant. Okay, and you can see that it's actually a very clear edge. Okay, so sorry, it seems like my computer is frozen. Okay, so now it's good. Okay, so the right part of the image is an interesting subclass. Okay, so which we may investigate in the future works. So we will mainly talk about the left part. Okay, so our idea is actually from this K-mean clustering. Okay, so how we prepare training data? Okay, so we prepare training data by chopping the background. So the background class is very easy to prepare. So we just chop. So once you have an image, so you know which part is a background. So we just chop and we extract each of the pixel in the chopped image. So background is very easy. Okay. So then for the plant part, the plant part we also chopping, but we chopping the plant, but we chopping the part with plant and clear background. Okay. For example, like here. Okay. So we chop the part with plant where we know that that part has a very clean background. Okay. And then we apply k-means on the chopped image. Okay. In this way, we can get the training for the plant pixel. Okay. It's very easy and do not involve a lot of the manual process. Okay. The good thing is once you do this, you can easily get a very large set of training data. Okay. Okay. So we also include the neighborhood information, okay, in our model. So which means for each pixel, we consider it 3 by 3 neighborhood. The reason that we include neighborhood information, because we know that the plant pixel will close to a plant pixel. Okay, the plant pixel is likely to surrounded by plant. Okay, and the background pixel is likely to surrounded by background. Okay, so actually each pixel in our model has 27 features. So which include the 3 features for the RGB, so red, green, and blue channels. Okay, red, green, blue intensities of this pixel, and oh, sorry, I made a typo here. This should also be 3. And 3 features for the red, green, and blue intensities of the 8 pixels around this pixel. Okay, so in total, it has 27 features. So we prepare our training data just on one image. Okay, we prepare our training data just on one image. So you can do multiple images, okay, which you will have a larger training set. So our data contain over 1 million labeled pixels, okay? And then we plan to apply supervised learning method on this training set, okay? So this is how we prepare in training data. Any question? Okay, so now let's talk about classification. Okay, once we have this training data, so what we tried several different methods for classification. So we tried linear discriminant analysis, namely LDA, quadratic discriminant analysis, namely QDA, supported virtual machine, classification by tree, by random forest, and we also tried neural network. Okay. So now let me use some of the pictures to illustrate the idea of those methods. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let me first introduce linear and quadratic classification. So linear LDA, so is illustrated on the left side of the picture. Okay, so suppose that we have a data, okay, looking like what we're seeing on the left side, but it's labeled by the class. Okay, it's have 3 classes labeled 1, 2, and 3. So linear discriminant analysis try to use linear line, okay, in this 2-dimensional space to separate those 3 classes. Okay, and quadratic discriminant analysis try to use a quadratic line to separate those 3 classes. Okay, so this is LDA and QDA. I will not talk about their details, but just their ideas. Okay, so supported virtual machine. So supported virtual machine is actually quite mathematically involved, but the idea is actually very similar to linear discriminant analysis. Okay, so in some cases, that we cannot separate two classes by linear line or by a quadratic line. Okay. For example, in this data set, the red group is surrounded by this blue group. So what we do is we want to transform this two-dimensional, okay, this two-dimensional data into higher dimensions. Okay. And we think that we can more easy to separate those two groups in higher dimensions. Okay. In this spatial case, our transformation is quadratic transformation. Okay. So Z1 equal to X1 square, Z3 equal to X2 square, and Z2 equal to X1 times X2, square root 2 of X1 times X2. Okay. So once we make this transformation, we can easily use a hyperplane on this three-dimensional space to separate those two groups. Okay, so that is the idea of support vector machine. Okay, classification tree. The idea is different from LDA and also from support vector machine. So what we do is we from the full data, and we try to separate them by each of the variable. Okay, separate them by each variable such that, okay, the misclassification in each of the subclass is the smallest. Okay, for example, this is an example of whether an email is spam or not. Okay, so we can first separate by this variable, okay, larger than 0.0555 and larger than 0.0555, and then by some other variables, and then we can identify each of the subleaves as whether it's a normal email or whether it's a spam. Okay, so this is the idea of a tree. So random forest is closely related to tree, but we just build more trees. Okay, so random forest means that we have the original data and we make random subgroup selection from the original data. And for each of the sub-selection data, so we draw one subsample from our original data, another subsample, another subsample, another subsample. And for each of the subsample, we build a tree. And then we use model average across all the trees. Okay, so that is the idea of random forest. Okay, lastly, neural network. So the idea of neural network is that we have input variables, okay? We have input features, and then we apply a linear transformation and activation function, okay, to get these hidden layers, and then use these hidden layers to predict the output, okay? So on the left side, this is just, we have one hidden layer, and on the right side, we have multiple hidden layers. So the deep neural network means that we have many, many hidden layers. Okay. So why this method work? Okay. Why this neural net works? So let me give you an illustration here. So the idea actually is similar. I think in some sense similar to the idea of support vector machine, that we want to do a transformation on the original data on an original variable. Okay, so in this case, this is a very simple example that you have two groups, group A and group B, but group A is surrounded by group B on a real line. Okay, so as you can see that for this kind of groups, we cannot use a single number to separate these two groups because group B on is both smaller and larger than A. Okay, however, if you do a transformation, if you look at this hidden layer, if you do a transformation, and this hidden layer will learn to separate these two groups, okay, in the two-dimensional space and by this straight line. Okay, so this is the idea of neural network. So some simple illustration. So now, so we have training data, which are very easily to obtain by k-mean clustering and chopping the image. Okay, and then we have those commonly used classification method. So now we apply those methods on our training data. Okay, so what we do here is we choose, so remember, so I talk about we have over 1 million of the training data. Okay, we have 1 million pixels, okay, with correct labels. So here in this, method comparison, we only choose 50,000, okay, out of the full training sample. The reason to do that is support vector machine and the random forest is actually very time consuming. Okay, so we will talk about that more. Okay, so this 50,000 subsample is just a random selection of our original 1 million training set. Okay, once we have this 50,000 subsample, and we split them to 40,000 of training and 10,000 of testing. Okay, so let's look at the result. So first of all, so let me explain a little bit. So the training error and the testing error are the total errors over the total number of pixels. So it's a ratio of total errors. Okay, false positive. Okay, false positive means the ratio of background pixel misclassified as planned pixel. Okay, so we consider it as a false positive. We consider planned pixel as positive, background pixel as negative. False negative means that the planned pixel misclassified as background pixel. Okay, so in our classification method, we choose to control false positive to be small because we do not want to have a lot of background noise in our segmented image that will heavily influence so our calculation on the plant height, plant width, and especially on convex hole. Okay, so comparing all this method, okay, thresholding method, okay, this thresholding method is we manually choose a threshold, okay, which perform the best for this thresholding method. The thresholding method is the worst, okay, and among all those 5 supervised learning methods, so random forest and the neural network is the winner, okay. So here we compare on the testing error and the testing false positive and testing false negative. So both random forest and the neural network have very small false positive. Okay, as we said that we do not want the background to be classified as planned. Okay, and it also have the smallest false negative. Okay, the reason that this ratio is relatively larger, okay, is because we have fewer planned pixels in our training set. So most of our training set is background. So you can add more planned pixels there by apply k-means on more images. Okay. So, but our finding is that we just prepare training data from one image. It's good enough to do prediction for all other images from our greenhouse, the Nebraska Lincoln greenhouse. Okay, so the conclusion for method comparison is all of those supervised learning methods are better than thresholding. Okay, those thresholding is based on manually to the threshold level. Okay, and the random forest and neural network perform the best. However, random forest is very time consuming. Okay, it's very computational intensive because it needs to randomly draw subsamples and then run a tree on each of the subsample. Okay, so that is actually quite time consuming. So we tried that we cannot get the result on a single PC when the training sample is larger than 100,000. Okay, so our neural network actually has a very simple structure. We only have 2 hidden layers. So the first hidden layer with 1,024 neurons, and the second hidden layer have 512 neurons. And we just use the renal activation function. Okay. So let's look at our results on real images. So on the left side, this is the original image. So in the middle, this is from the thresholding method. Again, that we manually choose the threshold level such that we think this is the best result we can get from this thresholding. And on the right, we just apply this neural network method. Okay, so this is one case. And this is another case that we think that the neural network is better than thresholding. Okay, so this is what we did in greenhouse. Okay, the code is online on this GitHub. So its code is based on R, so it can be easily implemented. And the image data, the raw image data, is stored on servers under this DOI here, I list here. So if you are interested, you can try our method. So the code here is we provide the code to prepare the training data, and we also provide the model that you can directly use, the neural network model that you can directly use for prediction. Okay, but if your greenhouse is different from the Nebraska-Lincoln greenhouse, the lighting environment and the camera are different from the Nebraska-Lincoln greenhouse, probably it's better for you to construct the training set for yourself. Okay, so that is the case for greenhouse. So let me briefly talk about what we are working now. So after I come to join Iowa State, so I realized that the Iowa State have a very big facility on the field level. Okay, so we put the camera on the field, and then we take a picture every 20 minutes. Okay, and to measure the plant growth. Okay, so this is one sample image. Okay, what we want to get is the plant height, plant size. Okay, from the first row that we see here. Okay, so this actually is much more challenging than the greenhouse because the background is much more noisy, and you have these shadows of this plant which are actually difficult to separate. Okay, so thresholding method does not work at all for the field image. Okay, so what we do is we think, how about it? Try to use our method. Okay, so again, it's about preparing the training data and then about building the model. So what we do is we just chop the background, okay, from the field and use the plant pixel from the greenhouse. We combine those two together and then we build a neural network. So on the right side, this is our segmentation. As you can see, it gets rid of most of the background noise. Okay, and also it's so several plants miss some part. Okay, but this is also a very good starting point for us to measure the plant height. Okay, automatically measure the plant height. Okay, so this is the project collaborating with a plant science institution here at Iowa State, and we are writing the manuscript, which should be ready in recent weeks. Okay, so the collaborators on this project is, first of all, Dr. Jason Adams. Dr. Adams is actually not a doctor yet, but he will defense next week. So he will become a doctor very soon. So he is a student here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Statistical Department right now. He will join Sandia National Laboratory after graduation. And this work is collaborated with Dr. James Schnable at UNL, Dr. Yuhan Xu. So right now at the Bowling Green State University. Okay, so this is our paper, and I'm ready to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. I was talking with still being muted. So thank you very much for a great presentation, Yumou. That was
thank you very much for organizing this.
Yeah, a lot of great background. So if you have questions, please go ahead and put them into the group chat, or you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask those questions now. In the interim, I'll just take a brief moment to say thanks for highlighting the Plant Phenome Journal. We're looking for articles like this and articles that relate to plant phenotyping of any sort. I'll also point out that we have the Phenome meeting that's coming up in the next couple weeks here in Phoenix, Arizona, where you can learn some more about this. And we have the North American Plant Phenotyping Network, which is a group that's working hard along with Plant Data to help coordinate information that's going on across the country and world in these areas. I'll take the benefit of the first question here. I'm not a machine learning expert. I'm still trying to, learn quite a bit about the various ways that people are applying these technologies. But one of the things you point out in your table is you have a testing set. My understanding is, there's a training set and a testing set in what you're showing. From my understanding, talking to some of our statisticians here, they are usually recommending we just don't have a testing set and a validation set, or I'm sorry, a testing set and a training set, but also a validation set, because some of the machine learning methods will sometimes overfit a model if all you have is a training and a validation set. And you really need a third held out set. Is that what your testing set is? Did you have a validation set, or anything you want to explain on that?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for the question. It's a great question. So what we did here, so yes, we need 3 different sets. So what we usually do is this testing set, okay, once we get this testing set, we put it aside. Okay, we do not look it, okay? We put it in the black box and lock it, okay? We should not look at this testing set, okay, when we build a model. And then for the training, actually, we split it into training and validation, okay? So what we do is that we train our model on the training and tuning our parameters, hyperparameters on the validation set, okay? So that gives us a trained model, okay? And then we test on the testing set. So here, I actually didn't put our validation set, but we indeed has a validation set for hyperparameter selection. And this testing set is truly for testing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges here is just people use different terminology for the order of those 3 sets.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think some computer sciencey people, what you call validation, they'd call testing. What you call testing, they'd call validation.
Yeah. So yes,
yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So we have different terminology in different disciplines. That this is also a barrier that we need to overcome for collaboration.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. I noticed that there is a question online, so I would like to briefly talking about this question. The first question is a very good question. It's talking about what is how the training data set is built and how much time was investigated in building it. So I mentioned that in my presentation, the reason that our method called the simple method is because we do not need to put a lot of time to prepare the training data. Okay, so the training data, because it's on the pixel level training data. Okay, so we just chop the images. We just chop the background out from this image. So that's very easy. So you can chop and then read in this image in R or Python, and it will automatically get this background pixels. Okay, and then for the plant pixel class that we chop, we still chop. Crop. We still cropping a part of the image with plant and with clean background, and then apply k-mean clustering on this cropped plant image. So then the k-means clustering will give us the pixel level. So the preparation for the training data is actually quite easy. Once you have the code, I believe that you can prepare this data set within, let's say, 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and is there any difference in processing time running classification with random forest and the neural network? Yes, random forest and neural network, actually neural network is more computational efficient. So random forest, because it's require different resampling for the original data. So if your original data is actually large, it's actually, let's say 1 minute. So you need to doing resample for this 1 minute many times, maybe as 1,000 times. And each time you need to build a tree okay, on this 1 million data, which means that you need to build the tree for the classical random forest. You need to build the tree to the leaf which only have 1 node in each of the leaf. So you need to split the tree 1 million times. Okay, so it's actually quite time consuming. Okay, so neural networks are actually more computational efficient. Okay, sorry. What is important? Do not have background classified or not have.
So Kareem is asking, what is more important, to not have background pixels classified as plant, FP, or to not have plant pixels classified as background, FN? Can you explain?
Okay. So for the first question, if we go to, so let me explain the first question here. So by using this segmented image, so this is just for illustration, but we can get rid of the background noise easily by using operational morphological operation, namely dilation and erosion. Okay, so if we have background noise and we want to calculate the plant white, okay, we will calculate from here, because this is the first column with the white white pixel to whatever we have on the right side. So once we have background noise, okay, it will, so those are outliers in this segmented image. It will affect the extracted features. Okay, and plant pixel classified as background. So we want to maintain most of the plant pixel. However, if we try to control those background noise, that we will lose some of the plant pixel. We hope that we do not lose much. Okay, so that's why we try to build a more accurate, more robust method. Okay, so if we lose some part of the plant pixel, yeah, it depends on which part we lose. But if you lose some part in the middle, because when we look at those RGB images, some leaf actually from the image are very thin because of different angle that we make this image. So in some of the cases that the leaves will break out into pieces. Okay, so in that cases, it will not affect when we measure the plant height or measure the plant width, but it will affect the plant size to some degree. Okay, is that answer your question? Okay, so let me look at the next one. Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay. Question is, how did you choose the proportion of the training and the testing data? Yeah, that's a very good question. So in our paper, we tried to unbalance the training data and balance the training data. Unbalanced training data is just we randomly. So for our, so as I mentioned that we get 1 million of the training samples. So we have 1 million of the labeled pixels. For the unbalanced, we just obtain, oh, sorry. For the unbalanced, we just randomly sample 50,000 from this 1 million. So that's unbalanced. So I believe that 90% of them are background, less than 10% are plant pixels. So this is result that we obtained from this unbalanced data. Okay, so we also have a result in our paper that we deliberately construct the training with relatively balanced the background pixel and the plant pixel. Okay, and we compare those methods. So when we apply neural network to do the segmentation, that we directly use what the training data we have. So we directly use everything we have. So which means the background and the plant pixel are not balanced. We could include more plant pixels there by using this k-mean on different images. It's not very difficult to do. Okay, you can do this within an hour. But what the result report here is even for this unbalanced data, we have a good result. And we think this unbalanced case is also similar to the real case when you have image that the plant actually just take a small part of this image. Okay, next question. It appears you use feed-forward neural network structure to decide to use a structure. Okay, so this is a question about the structure of neural network. So yes, you are right that I use the very simple neural network structure. Okay, so I do not use a convolutional neural network. So the reason is here. So we could consider that in the future work. The reason is here. So when we have a full image inputted in the neural network, okay, because this full image have local structures. Okay, so for example, if the human face that we know that we have hair, we may have so the eye is the two eyes are kind of symmetric, and we so beneath two eyes there are nose. So we have those spatial spatial structures, local structures. So convolutional neural network by using convolution can have a good summary, have a good transformation to capture these local structures. Okay. However, our neural network is different because we do not put the whole image into the model. We just put each pixel, the RGB intensity, including its neighborhood, of course, the RGB intensity of this model. Okay. Sorry, RGB intensity of each pixel in this model. So this is actually a much simpler case. It's also why we call the simple method, the simple segmentation method. Okay, so we do not have these spatial structures. So that's why we do not use a convolutional neural network. We just directly use this forward feed neural network. Okay, would the model classify anything that's of plant color, greenish, or does the model consider for shape as well? So greenish. So what we found, so let me show you an example. So if you look at this picture closely on the left side, so you can see that there actually a reflection on the walls, okay? The reflection of this plant on the walls, okay? So those reflections actually are very difficult to get rid of by using thresholding, okay? However, if we use this neural network, so we have no problem with that, okay? Of those reflections, okay? And our method right now does not consider shape. This is also related to the previous question that I mentioned. So this is something that we could consider for future. So how to consider the shape of the plant in the model? So we are not very sure at this moment. Yeah. Any other questions? Those are all very good, wonderful questions.
If anybody would prefer, oh, you got another question here, but if anybody would prefer to unmute and ask your question in person or ask a follow-up from one of the previous questions, please feel free to do so.
Okay. Experiment in the field from the perspective of photo processing. Future experiment. Oh, so this is from Zihao. Okay. yeah, Zihao. Okay, it's good. It's a very good question. So, so I think we need to talk about that more in detail. So, so we will do a presentation soon, maybe tomorrow or next week in our meeting to talk about those problems. So we do find some mechanical issues that we may need to talk about. It's a great question, yeah, but we can talk about that in our meeting.
Oh, is that one of your own students asking a question?
Yeah, that's a student from Pat,
okay.
Dr. Pat Schnable. So we're working together on the field level image processing.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, so the field level is actually much more challenging. than the greenhouse. The greenhouse, so even though we propose this greenhouse, this new method on this greenhouse, that we get some improvement for the thresholding, but not much. However, for the field, if you use thresholding, you get nothing, okay? Because you cannot separate the plant from the background. The background is just too noisy.
Yeah, I think what you said is consistent with what most plant scientists find, which is it's always a lot easier in the greenhouse when you can control things, or the growth chamber, and as soon as you take it out to the field, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yumou, I realize you're going to go into more technical detail with Zahao later, but do you have any sort of broad wish lists for field data in terms of things that either have worked really well or things that are really frustrating? It seems like it would be possible to do differently.
So what we find out is if the plant fall on the ground, it will cause another problem for the following analysis. So,
okay.
So once we have these segmented images, so then we need to separate each row, right? We basically need to separate the first row here. So there is another problem. So if the first row and the second row overlay, so right now we do not have a good method to separate them. So if the plant goes bigger and the row in the first row overlay the plant in the second row, so right now we do not have a method to separate it. It's a very important question that we need to solve. Otherwise, we cannot deal with a much larger plant. Another thing is we propose a method to automatically count how many plants in a row, because in some rows there are maybe only 5 or 4 plants. Then this gives us some challenging of how to separate each plant in a given row. So there are actually a lot of questions that we are solving now for the field facility.
I'm still muted. I'm not seeing any additional questions, and I'm not hearing anybody jump in. So I guess with that, let's thank our speaker.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah, very much. I very enjoy working in this field. It's, yeah.
Well, and your skill set is very much needed. I think everybody will agree. And are you going to Phenome?
Yeah, I haven't been at meeting, but I always want to. I should go.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say people can follow up with you there, but I'm sure people are welcome to follow up with you by email.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Thanks again. Look forward to make more great work from you and your collaborators.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, and Pheno Journal very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.